Hello geeks and gamers, this is Sir Guido back here again with another gaming video. What I want to talk about this time is something that I put in an article on douchydm.com, and that is organized play. Now, I think that organized play has gotten a bad rap, and I kind of want to talk about my experiences with it, and why I like it, and why I think it's good. But before I do that, I want to talk to you about the fact that I've only ever played Pathfinder Society. I want to make that clear up front. I've never played D&D Encounters. I've never played anything in the RPGA, never living Greyhawk, never living Forgotten Realms, nothing like that, nothing else, just Pathfinder Society. So all of my opinions right now are going to be basically based on that, but I think some of this can be extrapolated into other areas. Let me start off with telling you how I got into organized play. About a year and a half ago, if you've listened to some of my videos before, you'll know that I lost my job. And I ended up with all this free time on my hands. I sat home a lot, and at first I did a lot of stuff around the house, things that had been kind of nagging me and I'd never gotten around to, and I got all those done. But eventually I kind of ran out of things to do. The only thing I had to do was kind of keep the house clean, do laundry, dishes, that sort of thing. At the time, we were working on the cake business, but it was in its infancy, so we didn't really have a lot of business. So I found myself a lot of times just sitting home with nothing to do. And being a gamer, what do I want to do? I want to fill that time with gaming. There was no game stores locally that I could go to at the time because of the, as you can see, I'm a bigger guy. And the chair situation, the seating was just not adequate for me, so I couldn't go to those places. I tried to join some gaming groups, some different groups playing different games, but for whatever reason it didn't happen, mostly because the hours that I wanted to fill were during the day, and most people work during the day, so it was difficult for me to fill that time. So I started looking around, and I got onto a website, chat.dmtools.org. Well, it's not really a website, it's a part of a website, but it's a chat that's based on Pathfinder. I started hanging out in there and spending a lot of my time in there, kind of learning more about Pathfinder and some more of the rules. And I kind of noticed one day that some people were talking a bit about playing Pathfinder Society, and I got interested and kind of talked about it. And I was like most people, and I said, "Oh, I'm not really interested in organized play. I heard that's kind of lame, and it's all about combat, and there's no actual role-playing involved." But a couple people kind of said, "No, it's not really true. You should check it out. Find a local game store that runs it." Well, we talked about that issue, so that didn't happen. But then somebody said, "Hey, you can play this online." Online, really? How does that happen? And they said, well, you download a program like MapTools or T-Top, which stands for tabletop, T-Top RPG, and I was like, okay, I can do that. I can download something. And then you find people to play. You get there all together. You sign on to Skype for voice, and then you use the virtual tabletop program to emulate sitting around a table, and you play the game. And you can play a Pathfinder Society like that. You should check it out like that. Okay, well, I'll look into it. Well, I ended up searching on Google, and I found a Google group called the Pathfinder Society Online Collective, and ended up getting into a couple of games. Didn't really know what I was doing. Made a character based on the specific rules that are in Pathfinder Society, and started playing. The first couple games, I didn't really involve myself too much because I wasn't sure what I could or couldn't do. But by the time the third session came around, the third time I played, I kind of had a handle on things, and by that point I realized that you could pretty much do anything you can do in a normal game with just a few restrictions. I mean, a normal D&D game is loot the bodies, sell the stuff. Can't do that in Pathfinder Society because, money and things like that are controlled. Now, you can loot the bodies and use the stuff throughout the scenario, but then at the end of the scenario, you lose it. And the way they've kind of explained that away is that when playing in Pathfinder Society, you are a member of a group called the Pathfinders. You are hired to do a job. Your job is to go out there and do whatever your boss tells you to do, and only do what they tell you to do. And when you get to keep what he says you get to keep, and that's basically the way it works. For magical items and things, you have to buy them, and you only have a limited access to certain magical items, depending upon how long you've been a Pathfinder. Your character, not you. You earn what's called prestige, and that prestige allows you to buy magic items through the actual Pathfinder Society. So right there is a pretty good little flavor and background in the game. But on top of that, though, there's a lot of role-playing and flavor and everything in the actual scenarios. That's what the sessions are called. That's what the group, that you buy them online, a GM gets them. Everything is, self-contained, just like buying a canned adventure off of the shelf. And everything is in there that you need to run the game. All of your NPCs and everything's there. The story's there. It's all in there. And in detailed in each encounter, of course they have the stats so you can run a fight if you need to, but there's generally also lists in there of how you can get around the fight with role-playing means. But even if they're not there, it's really left up to the GM to be able to allow you to do that if you want to. You can actually complete most scenarios 75% of the way with roleplay and not actually combat. Now, combat is available if that's what you want and that's what it ends up needing to happen. You can do that, but you can get through most of it with roleplay. A great example of that is a session that I played one time with the first character that I played. One of his old combos is he used a lot of wands. He was a fighter, so he couldn't use them himself, but he'd pass it around to the other magic users in the party. But we had a fight where we had to get past. The big bad guy was in a tower, and he had all of these lackeys with him, and we'd been kind of facing the lackeys throughout the scenario. A lot of times we just used diplomacy and things like that to get around them and not have to fight them. In one case, we did end up having to fight them, and we ended up killing one of them. Well, one of the halfling, our rogue, got the idea of hey, why don't we just see if we can infiltrate the tower and just take out the bad guy, and then all of his lackeys will probably leave us alone, and we'll finish the whole thing. We don't have to have all these big, massive fights or anything. And we're like, okay, that's a great idea. Well, my character had a wand of a large person, so the magic user used that on the halfling to make him medium-sized. The halfling rogue had a great disguise modifier, so he put on the dead guy's costume or uniform and disguised himself to look sort of like that guy. We get to the tower. Most of the people hide. I was acting like his prisoner. We get into the tower, get all the way to the top without being stopped at all. We get up to the top where it's just the two of us and the big bad guy, and we start fighting. I push him out to the balcony where our archers can shoot at him, and our ranged magic users. And we kind of take the guy out in like 2 or 3 rounds. It was a very short fight. It was not a big deal. And then as soon as that was done, and the lackeys come up, the rogue, again with his bluff skill and stuff, kind of said, hey, listen, we're in charge now of your group because we took out the leader. That's the way these rules work, right? That's the way you handle stuff. So we're the bosses now. So what we're telling you to do is to disband, disperse, and we'll call you back if we ever need you again. And rolls were made, and it worked, and we got past the encounter with little combat, not a whole lot. Whereas we should have been, by rights, I think, according to the scenario, been fighting on each level of the tower. But because we made the rolls, we didn't have to do that. Because we kind of circumvented the system a little bit using role play and characterization to kind of get around it. So that's kind of why I like. That's one of the reasons anyway why I like organized play. It gives you a lot of options to play without having to deal with making sure other people can show up. I mean, I'm 33 years old. The game group that I had for a while, which has kind of fallen apart, was mostly older, in their 30s and 40s. So we all have normal lives. there's not a whole lot we can do to get around it. And it seemed to happen a lot that somebody wouldn't be able to show up because something came up. And most of my group was also couples. So usually if one person couldn't show up for whatever reason, the other person also couldn't show up. So then we wouldn't have a session. And that happened a lot. It seemed like a lot of times we'd have 2 or 3 session weeks in a row that we'd miss because something happened with this couple, then something happened with that couple, and then something happened with this other couple. And so we just weren't able to play. With Pathfinder Society, because it doesn't matter who shows up, as long as you have at least 3 people and a GM, you can play. It doesn't matter what people show up. The scenarios are kind of designed so it's not required to have a rogue, a wizard, a fighter, and a cleric, or whatever. You can sort of have any mix you want. I've played in groups where it was 4 clerics, and we still got through, and we completed the mission. That's kind of the way it's made, though, so you can do that. You see interesting things like that, like a group of clerics. I was in a group of fighters once where we had no magic whatsoever. It was nothing but fighters, and honestly, it was kind of difficult because there were a few places where a rogue or a wizard would have come in handy. And of course, we didn't have a healer, so even though we sort of met everything with combat, we got damaged. So it was a little dicey at times, but it was fun because of that. One of the great things about organized play, like with things like Pathfinder Society, is that I can play today online with my character, and then I can go tomorrow and play a completely different scenario at the game store, and then this weekend I can go to a convention and play a different game, a completely different scenario with completely different people, and then next week if I'm on a business trip out to California, I can find a game store out there and play a session out there with the same character. I can take that character wherever I want because of the fact that the rules are a little bit more restricting and they kind of limit you a little bit. But by limiting you, they limit everyone and put everyone on a level playing field. So you can get your experience and you can level up at the same rate as everyone else, so that everyone else is at the same level, and you're not sitting at a table with another first level character that has 30 gold pieces or 30,000 gold pieces worth of magical equipment after based on some loophole that they found and like whatever. Because I mean, one of the first things I think that I thought about with organized play is, well, why wouldn't you just play a wizard? Because you can just make magical crap out the wazoo and then resell it. And you can make tons of money, or you can just stock them up yourself. I mean, think about it. Think about a wizard that just sits there and makes potions all day. Because in between time, there's no set time between scenarios. You play one scenario as your wizard, and then just say, oh, well, it's been three years since he adventured, and he made all of these potions in that amount of time. Technically, that would be legal, except for the fact that since magical items are so strictly controlled, you can't take the brew potion feat or forge ring or any of that stuff within the society. You can't make magical items. You can't make anything like that. So it's controlled so that levels you off. And with the prestige rules, someone that's at a low level, even if they end up coming into a lot of money, they can't buy high-level magic items, which would again make them off-kilter with everyone else because they haven't earned enough prestige and fame to qualify to buy those magic items. So, yeah, there's a few more rules. Yeah, it's a little bit more restricting. Yes, it makes you do things a little bit differently. But it is fun. It's not nearly as hack and slashy as you'd think. It's not nearly as restricting as you'd think. You can still do a lot within the game, within organized play. And it's still a great time. So definitely think about it and check it out. I recommend it. Yeah. Check out some organized play locally. If you have to, check out pfizer.com/Pathfinder Society to find a game near you. And let me know what you think. I enjoy it. I think you will too. So I guess I'll see you next time. Here on my video, I've got another couple of them coming up. I'm going to do one quick review of Savage Worlds. I'm going to do a quick review on a few more board games and things that I have picked up recently and that I've been playing. Those will be coming in the next couple of days, so check those out, and hope we see you then. Have a good one, and keep on gaming.